Hey, everybody. This show contains spoilers and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Movies with Ron, movies with Ron.
Hell yeah, motherfucker.
Movies with Ron.
Oh, man, you guys want to hear some shit?
What's up?
Okay.
So the other night, I got an alert for Twitter interactions. I got 2 of them. Took me a minute to, get to them, but somebody liked a couple of our tweets, and they were the episode announcements for episodes 25 and 26.
Oh, wow.
Which, does anybody remember what those are?
That was My Science Project.
Yeah, My Science Project, parts 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you guys remember My Science Project with, the 2 cool guys and the nerdy dork kid, running around the school?
You kidding?
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Saving the world? Right, okay. Just freshening you up.
Oh, man. I live by that movie.
Fucking shit.
It was funny. Stop now.
I'm having a good time. What?
Fair enough. Okay, so turns out this guy named Raphael Zabarge liked both of those tweets. And I was like, huh. And he's got a little photo.
Uh-huh.
I clicked on it. And he is Inspector Mulk from TNT's Murder in the First. He plays Archie/Jiminy on ABC's Once Upon a Time. And Caden Alenko in Mass Effect. Okay? And he is otherwise known as Sherman from My Science Project.
Oh, holy shit.
What?
Hell yeah!
Sherman.
What's
Sherman.
up, Sherman?
Are you out there, man? Are you listening? Oh, man.
Yeah. Cool, right?
Yeah.
Getting a couple of huge thumbs up from Heather over there.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to do.
I know. It's like the world's biggest star has just knocked on our door.
Oh, my God.
What are you going to say to him?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, baby.
And thanks, Raphael. I'll be in contact.
So, Rick, you got some samples over there, huh?
Little new addition to the show.
Yes, I do. We have a sampler, ladies and gentlemen, and we've been having some fun with it, haven't we, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you give him a taste?
I'll give you a taste.
By the powers vested in me by the Federal Communications Commission, I command you to get on the microphone in a serious manner and continue this broadcast.
Love it.
All right. He's going to surprise us every once in a while, so don't be alarmed.
Let's drink some Fireball.
Fuck you, asshole.
You better have that thing loaded with Arnie quotes. Fireball.
One of us is in deep trouble.
Welcome to episode 47 of Movies with Ron, the podcast where my older brother surprises me with a movie he saw because I don't go see him anymore. And he explains the whole thing to me from beginning to end. Keep listening and you'll end up liking his versions better. It's okay if you've seen the movie. It's okay if you haven't seen it. The experience is unique, so just keep listening. I'm Chris, your MC for the time being. With us tonight, our sound guy Rick.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen?
And the winner of the Gemini Croquette Contest, Ron. Tell me, Ron, are you nervous in the service?
No.
Hey, there's a movie from 1973 called The Baby. Here's a synopsis. A social worker, still reeling from the loss of her architect husband, investigates the eccentric psychedelic Wadsworth family, consisting of a mother, 2 daughters, and an adult son with the apparent mental capacity of an infant.
Damn, this is a 70s movie.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, this movie's like kind of sexy. It seems kind of naughty. Like 70s kind of like, it's not a porno, but it was seriously made.
Okay.
It's called The Baby.
All right.
It's about this guy, and he's like in a diaper in the movie.
Yeah.
And,
Forget it, I'm not gonna sit in your lap.
Rick, you are taken to this with the greatest of ease.
All right. The Baby. David Mooney shaved his whole body for his role as Baby. All right. It took about a year for writer Abe Polsky to convince Ted Post to direct the film.
Really?
So this dude like wrote the movie and he's like trying to get people to make it. He wrote this like naughty little thing. And
that sounds like something nobody would want to direct in the 70s.
It said Post was reluctant to make the movie, and it was Todd Andrews' final film before his death in 1972. He died 7 months before the film's release. So he got to help make this, and he didn't even get to see it. I want to see this movie.
Yeah.
All right, here's the first 3 reviews on IMDb. Just too demented for words.
Wow.
Yeah. Second one is leave your jaw on the floor. And the third one is, God, I love the 70s. Now, me personally, I hate the 70s. Like, I hate it as the decade of filmmaking as well.
No.
I thought there was, like, too much freedom. Like, too much of this shit got made.
No, man.
In the 70s.
There are many 70s movies that I love that, like, people my age and younger would never even have heard of. Have you ever seen The President's Analyst?
No.
Fucking weirdest 70s movie, but I love it.
Yeah. There are movies I love from the 70s, but it's rare. But I think The Baby is one of them. I just haven't seen it yet. I think maybe you should see it and do a recap of it.
Done.
All right.
It's not going to be next week, though. That's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, baby!
Oh, shit. Can I provide some background on this? I am not going to see the film before the recap.
Good job, man.
Yeah?
Hold on. Wait. There is a reason why.
Should be because you support the show, but it's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, totally. I support the show before it existed. And what I'm getting at here is that one night we were all back here out on the porch, and we were talking to Chris and talking to me about Guardians of the Galaxy and how awesome it was and that we should go see it. And Ron, without audio equipment, in your natural state, gave a recap of it. That's how I experienced Guardians of the Galaxy
Really?
For the first time. Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah.
So we're on a roll here.
It's come full circle for
That's
Rick.
Right. That's right. I cannot see Guardians of the Galaxy until there is a recap. Sorry.
Perfect.
You're in big trouble, though, pal. I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast?
No.
Fucking Shooter McGavin.
Hey, there's a thing on the internet. It's kind of viral. It's a snippet from an interview with the cast of The Bourne Identity.
I'm listening.
In this interview, Julia Stiles says, after The Bourne Ultimatum came out, there was a premiere in London. Prince came to it. The singer, Prince.
Oh, we know who he is.
Then he got tickets for the cast to come see him perform.
Wow.
We were summoned into a room to meet him after the show. And Matt said, so you live in Minnesota. I hear you live in Minnesota. And Matt Damon says in this interview, Prince said to me, I live inside my own heart, Matt Damon.
Oh, my God.
That's it. It's just going around the internet. It's like the fucking surreal.
That's beautiful.
That happened to Matt Damon.
How you like them apples?
Ooh. And rest in peace, Prince.
All right, another quick one. There's a movie called Sam Was Here. It looks good. It was described as a Silent Hill-esque movie.
Oh.
Everyone said, I don't get this stupid movie. The director and writer of Sam Was Here got on Reddit and explained the whole movie to everyone. And everyone was like, oh, shit. And I read it, and I was like, I want to see this movie now.
Me too. What year did that come out?
It came out last year, I think.
Okay, I want to do that instead of The Baby. All right, we'll do both. But not next week, because that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, baby!
Yeah, I'm going to see that one.
Fuck you.
Rick's not going to see it. I'm going to see it.
You're not going to see it.
I am. All right, another one. That movie, The Nun, is coming out. It's The Nun from The Conjuring 2.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I am excited. You know what? And I feel bad for not having seen Annabelle. And I know nobody really liked it. But I love The Conjuring so much that I want to support it. I want to support its spin-offs and shit like that because that's a part of it, all right?
Yeah.
And that sequel coming out, which is actually a prequel, I don't give a fuck. I need to see Annabelle. That's all I'm saying.
They're making like another Annabelle movie, I think.
It's a prequel.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They're going to do like an Avengers thing with all these movies.
No, they're not.
And it's going to be a race. Okay, David Fincher is officially directing World War Z 2.
Yeah, he is.
I don't know what to think about that.
No, because if there was a bomb, all these hotels have bomb detectors. But also, no. I absolutely trust David Fincher.
Yeah. All right. I do too.
Okay, so where's Brad on this one?
I don't know.
He'll be in it.
I just hope it's completely different and kind of reinvents it.
And now for something completely different.
Because I hear that Brad is so into this shit. He was totally for him, like making a second one and a third one.
He's the guy that got the first one made.
Yeah, but he's also the guy who made it not why the book was special.
I am not convinced of that.
Oh, man.
No.
He wound up being a diehard fan of the shit, which is why the film was good.
Yeah, to be honest, okay, the only reason the film has any negativity at all is because of the digital effects, all right? The story was fine. Everybody who has a problem with the story of the film World War Z, I'm sorry that it wasn't like the book, but the book was basically unfilmable. You can't have World War Z as a major motion picture and have it be an anthology, because that's what the book was, guys. And anthology movies don't do well.
All right. Jeffblum, you remember Jeffblum?
I, of course, remember Jeffblum. Hey, Candy.
He has a food truck called Chef Goldblum.
Are you shitting me?
No, I'm not shitting you. Now hear this.
I'm not shitting on you.
He sells 3 different kinds of sausages. All right. The Goldblum, which is a chorizo sausage. The Silver Bloom, which is Italian sausage. And then the Bronze Bloom, which is some soy shit. You want the gold, silver, or bronze bloom?
I love it.
I know, man. Dude's a fucking genius. And
Where
look at this,
can I go to get this?
He's got a picture on one of the publicity photos, and it is so Jeff Goldblum, and he's like enchanting some young lady in this picture.
Come on. Oh my God, yes. He's totally pulling a fucking Jurassic Park in this photo.
I know.
Put this shit on the Facebook. Imperfections in the skin, the orientation of the hairs on the skin, microscopic.
Touching the hands, dude. What the fuck?
He is a fucking shining example of charisma. Uncle Jeffblum.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain of the ship is drunk.
To be or not to be? Not to be.
Oh my God, I fucking love that shit.
All right, Ron, what recap are we doing?
All right, here we go.
Rick's got the hiccups. What'd you see?
I'm not going to tell you yet.
Huh.
Little backstory. Okay, you and I have been going back and forth about this quote that we have been looking for. All right?
Yeah?
There is a quote, ladies and gentlemen, that Chris and I remember from childhood.
Yeah.
And the quote is this. Somebody's telling somebody, it's from some kind of parody spoof movie, all right? And somebody's talking and they're saying, oh yeah, so-and-so caught so-and-so up on the Hershey Highway, going up the Hershey Highway. And then the quote that I'm talking about is this guy saying, goddamn Hershey Highwayman. All right?
Yeah.
Now,
sometimes you see shit and you fucking retain it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just sits there until one day.
So that day was just the other day. And Chris actually brought that up in conversation. We were having coffee, all right? And he was like, oh, my God, that's the movie you should do. Because this weekend in theaters, there was, I assume there was a limited release of that movie Slight, which is the, the semi-spin-off of Get Out, maybe? We don't know. And then there was How to Be a Latin Lover. And neither of them really spoke to me, so I just decided to, screw it, we'll do another retro. We're gaining some momentum on the retros, it's fine.
Yeah. I can't believe weekends like this happen these days.
Oh, I totally can.
I just don't get it. Like, other movies are going to compete with each other on the same weekend. They could have had this weekend.
Absolutely.
It's weird.
So we're talking, and Chris says, "Goddamn Hershey Highwayman." And he starts laughing, and he's like, "Oh, man, that's the movie you should do this weekend. Hell yeah." And I was like, "Okay, well, what movie is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's that old Armand Assante movie with, Sean Young, and, it was one of those Naked Gun type spoofs." And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah. Okay, I'll check that out." And I remember that movie. I love Armand Assante. When our parents ended up getting divorced,
No.
But I told him on Twitter.
What?
I reached out to Armand Assante and I told him. It was on Twitter. There is a "Tell a Celebrity Why You Love Them" day. And I reached out to Armand Assante and I told him, when our parents got divorced, I went to our mother. I was like maybe 11 or 12 years old. And I requested that she marry you, Mr. Assante. So you could be our new stepfather.
Oh, man. Did he reply?
He did not.
Okay.
I had 2 requests for a new stepdad, and that was Armand Assante, and as a runner-up, Sam Neill, Dr. Alan Grant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We ended up getting Sam Neill.
Hey, and you know what? That's cool.
Hey, it wasn't that bad.
No, it was great.
Yeah.
I am totally happy with it.
I had a fun time.
So I love Armand Assante immediately.
Yeah.
And Sean Young, I have had a crush on her since I was a little kid watching Dune.
Uh-huh.
All right, so I'm all about it. I watched this movie. This movie is called Fatal Instinct.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's a comedy spoof of 2 titles.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct and Fatal
Attraction.
Yeah.
This quote was not in the movie. Okay? I started watching it like off and on. I was like cooking dinner while I was watching it and stuff. Maybe I missed it. I watched it a couple times. I still never found it.
No
Okay?
Hershey Highwayman?
And no. And then at coffee, you were like, "Oh, no. It was said by this actor." And you showed me a picture of Charles Durning.
Yeah.
Okay, who was the super fat, incumbent from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
He was not in that movie, man. So you got that shit wrong. I started to think, who could have said that? Because I'm looking through Charles Durning's filmography, and I'm not really finding a whole lot of comedies. You know, he was in Meatballs 3. I'm not thinking that you were thinking of that movie. I doubt you've ever even seen that.
Yeah, no.
And
Fuck Meatballs.
I decided you might have remembered wrong who it was. So I started thinking about these old spoof movies, right? Okay, who was in a lot of those? The irreplaceable, one and only Lloyd Bridges.
Oh, yeah?
And I was like, okay, he was like the king of those spoof movies, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he did it. Still, Google searches, no way. No results. Cannot find this line. I'm watching Airplane, looking for it. It's not there. But that led me to another movie. A movie that I think, because we talk about 80s movies a lot on this show.
Uh-huh.
But we almost never touch the 90s. And God damn it, I'm going to touch the 90s. I figured, what better movie to do this weekend than the one movie that really totally captures the spirit of the early 90s?
Uh-huh.
Hot Shots.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I forgot this movie.
That's why I did it.
I fucking remember that shit now.
America must remember Hot Shots.
Oh, God.
This was a Charlie Sheen movie, but Lloyd Bridges is undeniably the heart and soul of this film.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and strap in, because here comes 1991's Hot Shots on Movies with Ron.
All right, here we go. So we start off with the Fox logo, and then immediately we come in with some 80s soft piano, like at the beginning of Top Gun, right? Yeah. Even also kind of at the beginning of Days of Thunder. That boom, boom, where you see like the empty racetrack or the empty aircraft carrier, you know? Okay, and then it says Hot Shots. And then it leads into some cool 80s rock guitar. So then we see the flight deck Okay, and there's people prepping it, and everybody's walking around, loading bombs onto these jets and stuff. And it is a parody comedy, so we see two guys carrying bombs on their shoulders, and they walk in and they bump into each other. Boom! And one of them goes like, sorry. People are like flaming on jet engines and stuff, and then there's a guy roasting hot dogs in the fire from the engine, okay? Dude's playing football on the flight deck. One of them's running to catch the football. He falls off. And then there's another jet being parallel parked. Okay? You see another guy, like, he's actually just like a groundskeeper, and he's like blowing leaves off of the flight deck with a fucking leaf blower. So then we get a flashback from Flemner Air Force Base 20 years ago. Okay? And we see some ducks flying, and they're in a flying V, and then all of a sudden, a jet flies by them, and they get all pissed off, and you can hear the ducks actually talking, and they're like, God damn it. So then this one jet is being piloted by Buzz. Okay, that's his call sign, and his co-pilot is Mailman, played by the big lanky guy from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Buzz is, he's a loose cannon, okay, just like Maverick from Top Gun, and he's flying the plane too fast and stuff. He's like, oh, come on. Mailman's like, come on, man, we're not rated for Mach 2. Buzz is like, come on, just seeing what she can do, and then he loses control. He's like, I lost control. We got to eject. And Buzz ejects, okay? Mailman is still in the plane. He's like the navigator, okay? And then it crashes. Mailman ends up surviving. And he's like, whoa, there is a God. And he gets out, and he's walking around, and then he, like, sticks his head up out of the bushes. And remember, this plane crashed through, like, all these trees and stuff, all right, as it went down. So when he pops his head up, he's got all these branches stuck to the mud in his helmet, and they look like antlers. He then looks to the right and sees a sign that says, hunting season begins today. And then he looks to the camera and he says, uh-oh, and then boom! At that point, Charlie Sheen wakes up from his nightmare, okay? Charlie Sheen is playing Topper Harley. It's the name of this movie hero. And Topper lives with the Indians in teepees on the prairie with buffalo and everything.
Yeah.
And there's a military vehicle coming in to see him. And this is Lieutenant Commander James Block, who is played by the dad from the Transformers movies.
Oh, yeah.
Remember him?
Yeah. Reliable guy.
Absolutely.
I do not want to touch his ass.
So Block walks up to this teepee, okay, and there is a doorbell on it. And he rings it. Bing bong. And then you hear all of these latches inside being unlocked, like 500 of them. And then the flap just opens up. And it's Charlie Sheen. And Block is like, Topper Harley? Are you Topper Harley? And he's like, no, well, I once was. Now I'm known as Tuca Chinchilla. Oh, what does that mean? Fuzzy bunny feet. And he's wearing a pair of bunny slippers. Oh. So Block is like, Topper, we need to talk. The Navy wants you back. And they're sitting in another teepee, smoking on a peace pipe, except there's a balloon stuck to the end of it, and they're actually inhaling helium. And they're sitting in front of the tribe elder, who's just like sitting there, okay, like meditating. And Block says, there's a top secret mission happening called Sleepy Weasel, and we need you for this mission, okay, Topper? Topper says, leave me with the old one. He is wise in these things. So Block's on his way out, and he's like, all right, hey, great helium. I might add that they were inhaling helium, so that whole conversation happened like this. So Block leaves, and then Topper is calling the old one. He's like, hey, so-and-so, so-and-so. He's not answering him. He's like, hey, so-and-so. And then the elder pulls the earbuds out of his ears. And we can hear MC Hammer's Can't Touch This playing in the background. And the elder is like, yeah, I think you should go. I think you should go on this mission. Here's a parting gift. Dances with Bikers got you this. And he hands him a leather jacket. He's like, hey, bring back batteries. So then we got Topper Harley driving down the road on his motorcycle. And there's all this. He drives past a horse ranch and he sees this hot chick riding a horse, okay? This turns out to be Valeria Golino, who is the, I guess, the quintessential early 90s hot chick from movies. She's foreign. She was in Big Top Pee-wee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. His girlfriend in that movie.
Yeah. She's from, she was with Tom Cruise in, Autistic Brother movie. You Can Count on Me?
Rain Man?
Rain Man, there you go.
So he's like riding by her, and she's like doing jumps and making this horse stand on its hind legs. So he like pops a wheelie. He's like trying to do what she does. She ends up standing up on the horse. He stands up on the motorcycle. So she's like, oh yeah? So then she goes and she jumps onto some tree limb and she's doing all this gymnastic crap, and then she lands real hard right down on the saddle, right between her legs. And he's just like, wow. So he's like instantly in love with her. So he drives away, and then he makes it to the Navy base that he's going to, and there is a toll booth at the front gate. He has to pay 35 cents. So he's driving, and then a jet rolls right by him like it's taken off, and he like throws his fist in the air on his motorcycle, and he's like, yeah, woohoo, yeah. And then his motorcycle just starts bum, 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 because he's going over those bumps when you drive onto a flight deck, okay, that are designed to shake off any loose nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Then we cut to this big military plane has landed, and there is a fanfare and a marching band there playing Hail to the Chief, and the great Admiral Benson has arrived, the one who's been put in charge of Operation Sleepy Weasel, played by the one and only Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah.
Okay? So the door to the plane opens up. There's no stairs in front of it. He just opens it up to like wave at the crowd. Everybody's like cheering and waving at him, and he's like, all right, and then he just steps off of it and falls. He lands face down. So then Block walks up to him, and he says, Admiral Benson, how are you? And the Admiral says, Hawaii? God damn it, I'm supposed to be in California. Well, you are, sir. All right, well, I gotta run. Good luck. Wait, sir, this is your command. The president hand-picked you for Operation Sleepy Weasel. And he's like, you're damn right he did. There's no stopping us now, is there, Ted? All right, remember, this guy's name is James Block. All right, well, how about I'll show you around and I'll show you your office. He's like, yeah, okay, good. You've always been a fine soldier, Scott. Lead the way. Man, I gotta pee. Part of my bladder was blown off at the Guadalcanal. As they're walking away, the Admiral bumps his head on the engine of the plane, and he, like, falls down. And the Block is still walking away, and he's like, watch your steps, sir. There's many obstructions out here on the tarmac. So then we got Topper, and he is walking into the pilot's quarters, all right, where all the Top Gun pilots are bunking together.
Yeah.
He walks in, he's like, gentlemen, I'm back. And everybody's, like, cheering. They're all happy. Hey, Topper Harley, yeah. And he meets John Cryer. He sees him sitting on his bunk, and he's like trying to set a bottle of pills onto his nightstand or whatever, and he like misses it totally.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's looking at this bottle of pills, and we see it through like this weird camera lens that makes it all super magnified. And we learn that he has a condition called walleye vision. So Topper goes to shake his hand, and then John Cryer like misses his hand. And Topper's like, so you're a pilot? He's like, oh yeah, totally. Everybody here calls me Washout. And he meets another guy who's like hanging up pictures of his family. He's got this perfect family there, wife, 2 kids. Topper looks at him and he's like, oh, cute. And the guy says to him, thanks, I like to stay in shape. How about you? Oh, no, I meant your pictures of your family there. He's like, oh, yeah, family's important, How about you? You got any family? No, I'm my own family photo. I don't need anything. All I have is the sky, jet exhaust, I got my bike. And then the guy's like, oh, a loner, huh? He's like, no, I own it. Then the guy's like, Good to meet you, Topper. Everybody here calls me Dead Meat. And Dead Meat is like hopelessly optimistic about everything. At this point, we see from an adjacent bunk, Carrie Elways watching them talk. Oh, man. And he's watching them from behind an Esquire magazine on which he is on the cover as the Navy's best-dressed man. And then all of a sudden, the big mean sergeant comes on deck. Sergeant on deck! And everybody's like, attention! And, you know, he's yelling at everybody, talking about how, for the next 9 days, your ass is mine. And then he looks over to the right and he's like, what the hell? And he walks up to a blonde, big-titted Christy Swanson, who is wearing only a bra. And he walks up, he gets in her face, and he's like, you eyeballing me, mister? She's like, no, sir. He's like, well, the next time I see your ugly face, it better be clean-shaven. She's like, yes, sir. And he goes, suck in that chest. And she's got these big boobs in this white bra, and she, like, tries. He looks over to Washout, and he's like, Pfaffenbach! And gets up in his face, he's like, who you looking at, boy? No one. Oh, are you telling me I'm no one? Let me tell you something, boy. I am God as far as you are concerned. At that point, Topper Harley looks over and he says out loud, oh, come on, man. And he, like, defends him. Sergeant gets over into his face and he's like, oh, you, Topper Harley. Oh, yeah, I've heard all about you. Where your ego's writing checks your body can't cash, boy. And then he leaves. At that point, Carrie Elways, whose name is Kent, walks up to Topper and he's like, Topper's like, man, he's an asshole, right? And Kent's like, I hope you were paying attention. And he's like, you know, a by-the-books kind of guy.
Yeah.
Topper goes to shake his hand, and Kent says, forgive me for not shaking the hand of a man whose father caused the death of somebody very close to me. So-and-so, mailman, so-and-so. From the beginning flashback?
Yeah.
He was my father. I was his love child. Topper's like, oh, man, I'm sorry. It was a hunting accident, right? Ken says, accident my deep blue eyes. Because remember, we're talking about Carrie Elways.
Yeah.
He's like, it was irresponsible flying as far as I'm concerned. At this point, Washout, who is across the room, says, oh, my God. I'm so sorry. What an amazing coincidence. Okay, the hunter that killed your father was my father. And he pulls out this old family photo of his family at Christmas. He's in it, smiling with his dad and mom and sister. And on the wall behind them is Mailman's head, mounted with the antlers and everything still on it. And he's like, I'm so sorry, I feel terrible. And then Christy Swanson says, wait, Pfaffenbach? My mother was a Pfaffenbach. And then some other dude in the room just looks at her and goes, wait, not Doreen Pfaffenbach. She's like, yeah. And he's like, well, then we're cousins, okay? And you know, we grew up in Minnesota, and then we summered in Eagle River. And then everybody else in the room goes, Eagle River! So then Washout walks up to Kent, and he's like, I certainly hope you can forgive me. He hands him the photo, and he's like, if it helps, I didn't have seconds. Kent's like, it's not your fault. You know, anyone could have made that mistake. But this guy, and he points at Topper, and he's like, this guy, he's the loose cannon that's going to get us all killed. Topper's like, wait, man, why are you mad at me? He's the one that ate your father. And then Kent says, like father, like son. You've already been tossed out of the Navy once. So then Dead Meat walks up, and he wants to make peace with everybody, and he's like, come on, you guys. Let's all be friends here, you know. Now shake hands and make up. And they shake hands, and Kent is squeezing Topper's hand so hard that his hand, like, squishes into nothing, and it starts steaming and shit. And then Dead Meat is like, see? Is that better? And Topper's like, yeah. There you go. All right, we're all friends now. Hey, Topper, you want some of my lucky gum? And Topper's like, listen, Dead Meat, I know you're trying here, but don't get too close, okay? Because I'm a loner. And then he walks away, and Dead Meat's just like staring at him as he leaves. And Washout walks up to Dead Meat, and he's like, God, he's so complex. And then he has to like shake his head because he can't see shit. So then it cuts to Admiral Benson and Block. And Block is briefing him on Operation Sleepy Weasel. And he's giving him a report, and he's talking about, the defense arsenal, blah, 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 and the squadrons, and they can send up an ACAC umbrella that will make any attack ineffective. Maybe on the D and the negative C categories. Admiral Benson says, I don't have a clue what you are talking about. Not a goddamn clue. I have a shell the size of a fist in my head, okay? Pork chop hill. Only way I got this goddamn tube to stay on is by magnetizing the entire upper left quadrant of my skull. So you just go ahead and you do what you do. Do you have any soup? And the guy's like, of course, sir. I'll have the mess send some up. The Admiral sits down and he's like, God, I love soup. I mean, I think I love soup. Son of a bitch, it's either soup or duck. Which one do you shoot? Block says, duck, sir. And then the Admiral ducks. And he ducks, and he hits his head right on the top of his desk. Bong! Block's like, are you all right, sir? He's like, of course I'm all right. Why? What have you heard? Nothing, sir. All right, so let's go over this slippery weevil one more time. I want to familiarize myself with it as much as I can, Ben, so give it to me. Have you noticed yet that he's never calling him James or Block?
Yeah.
Okay, he calls him a different name every time. So then it cuts to Topper, and he has to go and see a psychologist. So he's sitting in the waiting room, and he's reading Psychology Today, the swimsuit edition. All right, and there's an electrician, like, pulling a bunch of wires and, like, setting up a ladder and then going up and working in the ceiling right in front of him. And Topper's, like, looking up at him all funny. So then he sees the door to this office is open, and he walks up, and then he just sees Valeria Golino, whose name in this movie is Ramada. And he just sees her legs. And they're gorgeous. And he walks in and he's like, wow. Long legs. And she's like, yes, I just had them lengthened. Now they go all the way up. And he sees her face and he's like, oh, it's nice to see you again. The way you were handling that stallion was just beautiful. Maybe after I'm done seeing this shrink, we can go out for a drink or something like that. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm the shrink. And he's like, oh. So then he has to sit down and get analyzed by her. See if he's fit for service.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you were kicked out of the Navy for losing a $30 million airplane due to disobeying a direct order. And it seems to me that your father, Buzz Harley, he had a similar thing happen to him, right? And then Topper starts, like, shaking a little bit. Okay. And he's like, yeah, but, I'm paying that $30 million back, $10 a week. And she's talking about his father. And she's like, yeah, he got his friend Mailman killed. And then, he lost his Visa card in 1980, whatever. And then he died a broken man in a photo booth. And Topper's like freaking out. He like breaks the handles on his chair and stuff. And, because he's so like, his heart's beating so fast.
Yeah.
And he's like, I gotta go. But it's obvious that he like likes her, And she's like, Topper, before you go, have you ever thought about seeing a psychologist on a regular basis? He's like, yeah, no thanks. And he's walking out the door and she's like, oh, Topper. Because behind him, you can see the electrician is working. And he's got like wires hanging. She's like, be careful out there. And he's like, yeah, thanks for the advice, okay? I don't need anybody's help. And then he slams the door and then he gets electrocuted. She runs to the door, opens it up, and there is Charlie Sheen standing there with his hair in like a magnificent fro. And she's like, are you all right? And he's like still sparking. And he's like, yeah, sure. So then all the pilots in the Sleepy Weasel operation are in their briefing room. Remember that shit from Top Gun?
Mm-hmm.
Block and the Admiral walk in, and they're like, at ease, men! And they're all striking some weird pose, okay? And then the Admiral walks in, and he is wearing those weird old general pants where he's wearing, like, tall boots, and then above them is those pants that, like, stick out at the side.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he walks in, and he says, all right, men. Now, many of you are wondering what's wrong with my pants. Well, they started running short of material right before they got to the knees, so don't give me any shit. Now, I look out there at all of you wonderful guys, and I say to myself, what I wouldn't give to be 20 years younger. And a woman. I personally flew 195 missions and shot down every one. Come to think of it, I've never landed a plane in my life. And then he says, now, and begins the montage of the next morning, everybody running out and boarding their new jets and stuff, but you hear his voiceover, and he's like, you'll be piloting our new Oscar EW 9458 Phallus tactical fighter bomber. And he starts talking about the plane, and he's like, it's maneuverable, and it's agile, and it features the latest radar jamming premise. So we got that montage going on of everybody's first day on the test flight and everything. People are getting into their jets, and they're like adjusting the rear view mirrors on the sides of the jets, you know. They like roll up the window with their power windows, even though jets don't have those. And there's like a factory sticker on the window, like it's a new car. Up in the tower, Ramada is walking by the Admiral, and she's like, Admiral? And he just looks at her and goes, Nurse? So they're out there doing their first test flight, you know, where they have like mock combat with each other. And, you know, Block, he's out there flying. He's the Tom Skerritt of this movie, okay? Yeah. And he's like, all right, everybody, you know, you're going to have to go low and hard and fast, you know, get down to the canyon floor. And, you know, Kent, he's like the teacher's pet, and he's like, for your information, I am at 150 feet. And then Topper is like, I'm at 3rd and Main. And he's like driving through New York City, flying through it. There's like hot dog stands like flying over there. And everybody's like, oh my God. And then Block is like, yeah, enough hot dogging, okay? Topper, who is flying next to Kent, he's like, hey, how am I doing? And Kent's like, don't get me started on you. Block's like, all right, you know, Topper, that move back there, that was vintage Buzz Harley, okay? You and your father are two of a kind. And then Topper freaks out. 'Cause he's thinking about his father, and he just hears, two of a kind, two of a kind, two of a kind. All right, so he's freaking out, and he's flashing back, and he can hear the drill sergeant saying, like, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. And then he, like, goes rogue. And, you know, he like, flies out of formation. And no one can reach him on the radio and shit. And everybody's like, Topper, what are you doing? And he is obviously having a mental problem. And so Block just, like, orders everybody back to base. And then Washout, he's trying to land. And he can't, because he can't see the runway. He, like, sees it, but then it, like, splits into 2 and then 3 and 4. And, like, in the cockpit, he's, like, putting eye drops in his eyes and shit and, like, trying to squint. And then he finally lands, and everybody's like, Washout, where the hell are you? Acknowledge, acknowledge. And then he looks out his window, and he is on Sunset Strip in Las Vegas. So then later, in the elevator, Topper and Ramada are both there, and there's like sexy flirting happening. And he's like, oh yeah, I like your perfume, what is that? And she's like, Vicks, I have a cold. She's like, you're staring at me. He's like, I'm sorry, I was lost in your eyes. That's the whitest white part of the eye I've ever seen. And she's like, yeah, you know, listen, after our meeting, you know, I've decided that I am going to ground you as a pilot, you know. And he's like, hell no, I'm a pilot. No one keeps me out of the sky. And then he leaves. And we cut to some boxing match, okay, in like a stadium. And there's Block, and he is sitting in the crowd, and he's meeting with some rich, shady guy. And he's saying, yeah, you know, Topper Harley, he's playing right into our hands. He was diagnosed by the psychologist with paternal conflict syndrome. And then the shady guy is just like, oh yes, PCS. They're years away from a vaccine. Block's like, every time I mention his father's name, you know, he just goes off. There's no way the unit will function. Then the shady guy is like, yes. And then the Navy's planes will seem inferior, and the president will beg for my super fighter. And Block's like, yeah. And best of all, no one gets hurt. Yes, good work, Block. Now this, and he points to the boxers, and he's like, this should be a good match. Both of these guys work for Don King. And then they ring the bell. The boxers approach each other. One of them throws a punch, completely misses, and then the other one goes down. So then it cuts to the inside of a bar, and this is like the You Lost That Lovin' Feelin' scene from Top Gun.
Yeah.
And there's Kent, and he's in there doing like trick pool shots. And he sees Ramada in there. She's in this nice, pretty red dress. And he's like, Ramada? Kent. And it's like, oh my God, it's so good to see you again. And it turns out that they used to date. Mm. And Kent's like, hey, well, you know what? Let's catch up. And she's like, yes, okay. I just have to take care of something, something really quick first, okay? And he's like, okay, hurry back, mon amour. And then she goes and sits on top of the grand piano on the stage, and this guy starts playing, and she starts singing, just like Jessica Rabbit in the Ink and Paint Club. And she's singing, The Man I Love. And, she's singing it. It's all sexy and stuff. And then she, falls off of the piano. But she just keeps singing on the ground, and she's still sexy. And Kent is, smiling at her, and he's, looking around the bar yeah, she's singing to me. She's walking through the crowd singing to guys, and this one dude opens his mouth and his tongue rolls out and it's a foot long. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden the piano music just starts getting real heavy. Boom, 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 boom. She looks over and now Topper's playing the piano. And she's like, ooh, and she walks over to him and she starts singing to him, and he's real smooth looking. And then Kent has a look on his face what the fuck? She stands up on top of the piano, and Topper's looking up her dress while he's playing, and she's singing. She gets down, and then they lock eyes, and then they finish the song, and there's raucous applause from the crowd. So then Kent goes and interrupts those two, and he's like, yeah, Topper, that flying today, that was madness. You're lucky there's a lady present, or I'd tear you apart like a Christmas goose. Topper's like, try it. And then Ramada's like, what the hell is up with all of this macho stuff? Topper's like, he started it. Kent's like, did not. Did too. Did not. Did too. And then Kent just very lightly pushes Topper. And then Ramada's like, stop it. And then you just hear from elsewhere in the bar, somebody yells out, Rumble! And then the whole bar starts brawling. And then Ramada stops it. She's just like, what do you guys, you can't act like civilized people? And then Kent looks at her and he's like, you know what? It's been a long time. Why don't we go and, why don't we celebrate? And he looks at the bartender and he's like, hey, drinks are on me. And then the whole bar just screams out, free beer! And then hundreds of people come rolling up. Anyway, they're leaving and Kent's like, hey, have you considered my offer? A house in the country, a family, picket fence? And she's like, you know what, Kent, I am just not ready for marriage. I'll see you later, okay? Good night. And he's like, good night. So he leaves. And then Topper shows up, and he's talking to Ramada, and she's like, yeah, okay, why don't you walk me home? And they're walking and talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm a loose cannon and everything. And she's like, yeah, maybe that's why I worry, maybe a little too much. And then he, puts his hands up to her face and squishes her lips shut. And he's like, shh, I'll be okay. I'm okay, I promise. And then right then, which is 5 seconds after they left the club, they arrive at her door. And she's like, well, this is it. And he's like, hey, nice place. She's like, yeah, it's okay. The only thing is I have a nosy landlady. And he's like, I don't want to go back. And she's like, you don't have to. I don't want to be alone. By the way, I can go all night like a lumberjack. And then she starts walking in the house and he goes, wait, what about your landlady? She turns around and says, you can do her too. And then he slips on the steps. So then they're in the house and we got this famous scene where it's their lovemaking scene. And, there's soft romantic music playing and they're in front of the refrigerator. He goes and he grabs a grape and he goes to put it in her mouth. And he's teasing her with it. And she's responding, sexily. And then, she gets the grape and she eats it. And when she chews this grape, it looks gross as fuck.
Like on purpose?
Yeah, like, no, like I can tell that she's like not really chewing the grape, but she's exaggerating her lips, and it's just like, ew. And then he pulls out a strawberry, and he feeds that to her. And she's like, yeah, and it's getting all sexy. And then he picks up a small, personal-sized pizza. And then he, like, rolls it up into a tube. And he even licks it like an envelope or like a joint. And then he shoves it into her face. And then she just, like, goes down on it and eats it. And then he lays her down. Remember, there's still music playing, and it's all romantic. And he pulls out a green olive. And she's like, ooh. And then he takes it and he swirls it around her belly button. And then he sticks it in the belly button. And then there's a faraway shot where we see him, like, put his hands on her belly and then, like, press down real quick. And it shoots the olive out and goes right into her mouth. I was reading in the trivia that this actress boasts, we didn't use trick photography for that. And then he takes an ice cube and he's like swirling it around her belly button. And she's like, ooh. And then the ice like starts melting on her skin. And then it starts like sizzling. Like she's so hot, right? And then he holds up an egg. And she's like, yes, oh yes. And then he cracks it onto her belly and then fries it. Right there. With a spatula. Okay. And then he holds up a strip of bacon.
Oh, man.
And she just like licks her lips. And he lays it on her belly and it starts frying. And then he like takes a spatula and he's like, frying breakfast.
I can smell it. I'm hungry.
And then at the last second, he like throws on a big pile of hash browns. And it's all sizzling and frying, and then they kiss. So then it cuts to the next day, and Washout has just been kicked out of the unit, and he's leaving, doing the walk of shame off base. And Dead Meat is like, what's going on, man? Oh, it's my walleye vision. You know, I've just been kicked out of the unit. He's like, oh, man. Well, isn't there anything they can do about it? He's like, yeah, there is an experimental surgery that they can do, but, you know, they have to go in through the rectum. And ain't no man taking that route with me. At that point, Dead Meat starts, like, feeling his pockets, and he's like, hey, that's weird. I can't find any of my lucky gum. Washout's like, yeah, I want to say goodbye to Topper. Is he around? Oh, no, he's AWOL. No one's seen him. You know, he's probably going to get kicked out, too. And then Washout just runs away. At that point, Topper wakes up in bed with Ramada. He's like, oh, my God, I'm late for my flight. And he looks over and he's like, you were great. And then he kisses her and he runs away. But we see that she is like sunken down into the bed. She's been driven down into it. So then Dead Meat's wife comes to visit him on base. She's like, honey, I have good news. You know, we got the dream house that we wanted to buy. We got it. He's like, oh, wow, that's wonderful. When do we move in? Tuesday, you know, I've got the kids at home dripping asbestos off the pipes right now. And he's like, oh, this is perfect. You know what? Life couldn't be better. I'm so blessed. And she's like, oh, hey, I brought those life insurance forms for you to sign. And he's like, okay. And he takes out his pen and he's trying to sign it. There's no ink. She's like, I'll get another pen. He's like, no need. I'll sign them when I get back, honey. And he's like, hey, by the way, I figured out a way to solve that global warming thing that's been happening. And she's like, really? You've been working on that forever. He's like, oh, yeah, totally. And hey, about my JFK assassination investigation? And she's like, you found the evidence you've been looking for. And he's like, yes, I've got it right here in my pocket. Well, do you want me to hang on to it? No. I've got it right here. It's safe with me. I'm in a jet. What could go wrong? And they're so happy. And then the drill sergeant is like, where the hell is Topper? And then Washout comes running by him wearing Topper's uniform and his helmet.
Oh, jeez.
So he's like helping Topper out, you know? Uh-huh. So he doesn't get kicked out. And he runs by him and he gets into Topper's plane. And then Dead Meat looks over and he's like, hey, Topper, have you seen any of my lucky gum? No. So up in the tower, there's a controlman who's just like, okay, pilots, start your engines. And they all start them up. Boom! Right then, Admiral Benson is standing there and he's like, God, that's loud. My ear canals are very sensitive. They're stainless steel. Took a bullet in Corregidor. pass straight through. Here, look at this. And then he picks up a kerchief and he stuffs it into one of his ears and pulls it out the other one. And then starts like pulling it back and forth out of each ear. And it's going like, wing, wing, wing. And then the controlman pulls the earplugs out of his own ears and he's like, here you go, sir. We have these to keep the noise down. The Admiral, who still has the kerchief hanging out his ears, just says, oh, good, thanks. And he takes them, pops them into his mouth, and then drinks some water and swallows them. He's like, let's hope they do the trick. Give me the mic, boy. Then the controlman, like, holds the mic up. The Admiral is not looking, and he just turns around right into it and bumps his head on it. It's like, boom! And he's like, oh, for the love of God, man, be careful. Ever since Normandy, this is Corningware, for Christ's sakes. He's, like, pointing at his head. So then all the pilots, they're doing their flight exercises, you know, and Kent has been nominated the red team leader, and Topper, the blue leader. But that's actually washout.
Uh-huh.
Then down on the ground, Topper actually shows up, and he runs into Dead Meat's wife. And he's like, hey, you're his wife? She's like, oh, yeah, it's nice to meet you. He talks about you all the time. So then the squad is up in the air, and they're all fighting each other, you know, with the mock battle.
Mm-hmm.
And Washout's like, I got a lock. And it's a duck. And he ends up turning his plane, and he just, like, rams right into Dead Meat's jet. And he loses control, and he's like, eject! He ejects, and he shoots right up through, he shoots out of his own jet, and then up through the floor of Dead Meat's jet. And his head is, like, between his legs, and Dead Meat's like, Washout? What are you doing here? And he's like, long story. Okay, whatever you do, though, don't land. Because his arms and legs are, like, hanging down. Dead Meat's like, hey, sorry, man, we got to bail out. We can't, I'm stuck. He's like, I'll help you, my friend. And he just pushes his boot down onto his face. He's like, think well of me. And he just pushes him right out of the plane. So then Washout, he pops his chute, but then Dead Meat for some reason cannot and ends up crashing. As his plane is going down, his wife on the ground is like, oh my God, no. Topper grabs her and he's like, no, don't look. And he turns her around. But behind him is like this big reflective window. And she just sees the whole thing happen. And she's like, oh my God, no. So then Topper's on his motorcycle and he and an ambulance are racing out to the crash site. From which Dead Meat is like walking out and dusting himself off. He's okay.
Uh-huh.
And then he gets fucking hit by the ambulance. And Topper comes up and he's like, hey, buddy. And then, oh, hey, Topper, you're never going to believe what just happened. And he's carrying him. And as he's carrying him, he is bumping his head on everything that he's walking by. Gives him to the paramedics who are like banging his head in the doors of the ambulance and shit. Finally, he's in there and they're driving, but they're in the desert. So it's like really fucking bumpy. Ambulance drives by and runs right over Washout's parachute and then ends up dragging him to the hospital. So they get to the hospital, the paramedics pull him out of the ambulance, and Dead Meat is like, oh, wow, what a ride. He's like, still okay? And the paramedics are like fighting with each other before they're pulling him into the hospital, and the sliding doors are like automatically opening and closing on his head.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get him inside, and then there's a doctor and a bunch of nurses, and they're like, rushing him down the hallway to surgery, right? You know those scenes in movies?
Yeah.
And the doctor is like, what happened? Topper's like, oh, it's a plane crash. The doc's like, I gotta work fast. I gotta lunch. Topper's like, what the fuck? And the doctor says, nurse, check his penis. Is it longer than mine? No, doctor. Good. Now this is going to hurt. And then he bites Dead Meat on the fucking nose. Like really hard. You like hear it crunch. Dead Meat's like, ah! Doctor says, nurse, give me 15 cc's of morphine, quickly. So she draws the morphine and then injects it right into the doctor's arm as they're all running down the hallway. Topper's like, you think you can save him? The doctor goes, I can't be sure. I'm not a very good doctor. Thank you, nurse. That's good, thanks. So they're going off into surgery, and Topper's like, you going to be all right, buddy? Dead Meat says, I'm in a hospital. What could go wrong? And then it cuts to the funeral.
I suppose nothing hurts you.
Only pain.
Topper walks up to the grieving widow, Mrs. Dead Meat.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, listen, I want you to have this. It's not much, it's something I've saved, It's only $2,500. I wish it could be more, but, and she takes it and she's like, oh, thanks, Topper. With the $3 million I just won on this lucky lotto ticket, I can take this $2,500 and just blow it all on hats. And he's like, yeah, great. So then Admiral Benson steps up to the podium to give the eulogy. And he's like, Pete, Dead Meat Thompson is dead. So is Mo Green, Tatalia, Barzini, the heads of all the 5 families. Does anybody get that? Godfather?
Yeah.
He's like, it's times like these that we must ask ourselves, how could this not be part of some larger plan? I mean, one minute you're in bed with a knockout girl or guy, and the next you're a compost heap. Doesn't that bother any of you? Because it scares the living piss out of me. Then it cuts to a limousine over on the side of the cemetery, and Block is inside of it meeting with the shady guy and his partner. He's like, oh man, I just lost one of my best men. Don't we have what we need already? The shady guy's like, no. These planes have to fail in combat. This death, this was just a minor glitch. Minor glitch? That was one of my best men. Shady guy's partner is like, are you backing out on us? Hey, I'm doing this for my country, not for you. And then he leaves. The shady guy looks at his partner. He's like, we're going to need the backup plan. So then Dead Meat gets like a 7-gun salute or whatever. Mm-hmm. And all these guards, they load their rifles and then they fire at once. Boom! Right then, Admiral Benson just goes, jumping Jesus, they're back. And he jumps up and he pulls his gun. And he screams out, people, take cover! Everybody starts running and panicking because he's like waving a gun in the air. Okay? And he runs over and he takes cover behind the casket after he opens it. Hides behind the door. And he's sitting there with the widow, hunkered down behind it. And he's like, Jesus, don't they have any respect for the dead? And then he points his gun over at those guards and fires at them. And they all start diving into the lake that they're around and stuff. Everybody is screaming and running. And he just goes, God damn, I love a good funeral. So now Topper has gone to see Ramada at her house. And he's like, yeah, that's it. I'm washing out. I'm quitting. This is just too much. Because Dead Meat died and everything. And he's like, they're right. I am just like my father. She's like, stop comparing yourself to your father. And he's like, he loved jets. He was a loner just like me. I even have his eyes. And then he pulls a little case out of his jacket, opens it up, and shows his father's eyes to Ramada. And she's like, Topper, please. And he's like, I just have them for luck. And she says, besides, I think someone wants Sleepy Weasel to fail. He's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, when I first evaluated you, I recommended that you be grounded. I turned my report into Block, and then he didn't ground you. So you have to fly. You have to be on this mission, okay? You can save this mission and work out your personal problems all at once. Don't quit. And then we see from a distance that Kent is spying on them. And they're walking on the beach having this conversation. Then it cuts to the Admiral in his office with his secretary. And he says, now read that back to me, Francine. And she looks at what she's writing and she just goes, and if you ever put your goddamn hands on my wife again, I will. And then there's a knock on the door. And Lieutenant Commander Block enters. And the Admiral says oh, blank, come on in. That'll be all, Francine. She's like, yes, sir. And then he takes a big old sip out of his coffee cup. And when he brings his cup down, there's all of this brown shit on his upper lip and nose. And then he just looks at Block and goes, pudding! And then Block immediately gets splattered with chocolate pudding that he was drinking. And he's like, no, thank you, sir. The Admiral's like, I want that hot shot Topper Harley out of here. The morale on this base is shot to hell. Just look out there. And he walks over to a painting on his wall that is a painting of the flight deck. And he's pointing at it like it's the window to his office. And he's like, just look out there. quiet. Hardly a man moving. And he like shouts into it, and he's like, Roy? Roy! I even went to school with that man. Been ignoring me all day. Remind me to send him a note. Block's like, may I say something, sir? You know, we need Topper. We need him for this mission. He's one of those loose cannons that lives on the edge. And that's the kind of man we need for this mission. The Admiral's like, I like your thinking, Carl. Besides, Dead Meat Thompson wasn't that good a pilot anyway. He only had a small family. Kids are a pain in the ass. Wife's on the sauce. Hell, little bastard's better off dead. What size shoes do you wear? A 9, sir. Good. It's settled then. We'll send Topper to the front. And then he's walking him out of his office, and he goes, oh, by the way, I want to thank you for having us over for dinner the other night. Cheryl and I thought the stroganoff was marvelous. Block says, but, sir, we didn't have dinner the other night. Really? Then where the hell was I? And who's this Cheryl? Doesn't matter. Run along, Sid. And then Block leaves. And then the Admiral just, like, stops, and he goes, Cheryl.
Fucking Sid.
So now Topper and Ramada, who were talking on the beach, they make it back to her house, and they see Kent leaving her house, carrying a big fucking chafing dish. And they're like, Kent, what's going on? He's like, I just came back from my chafing dish. We're shipping out in 1 hour. He looks at Topper, he's like, you coming along this time? I've got a score to settle with you. And then Ramada's like, the chafing dish isn't yours. He's like, yes, it is. She's like, okay, that's fine. Take it, you know. And he's like, well, now I don't want it. She's like, no, take it. And then Topper just goes, I'll take it. And then Kent gets pissed off and he leaves. Topper looks at her and he's like, you know what? I've fallen for you, okay? I've fallen for you and I want you. And then he starts singing to her. And he sings the song, Only You. But he's singing in like this really soulful black guy's voice. And during the song, there's like flashbacks of all their time together. And then it cuts to like romantic scenes in classic movies. Like the end of Rocky, where he's like, Adrian! But it's Charlie Sheen with his like eyes all blacked out. And he's like, Ramada! And she's like, Topper! Topper! Running out of the crowd. She's like, I love you. And then it shows them dressed up like the couple from Gone with the Wind, and he's like carrying her upstairs, and then he falls backwards, and they tumble down. And then it's the two of them flying through the air like Superman and Lois Lane in that stupid Superman movie. So then the song ends, and Ramada just looks at him. She's like, oh, Topper, I'm so confused. I need time alone. So he's like, oh, and then he just leaves. All right, so now we are beginning Act 3. And we are on the aircraft carrier out in the ocean, okay? And the Admiral arrives on a chopper.
Get to the chopper!
Okay, and the captain of the ship walks up and he's like, Admiral Benson! And the Admiral's like, really? That's my name too! And the pilots, they're all flying in and they're all like, yeah, Bogey 99er, permission to land. And then we hear this guy say, yeah, you are clear to land. Hey, Washout, is that you? And it's Washout. He's on the radar. He's like, yeah, they put me in charge of the radar. From now on, I'm going to be your eyes on the ground. And Kent in his jet is like, oh, shit. Washout is also wearing some of the hugest, thickest glasses you've ever seen in your life. So they're all landing, and we get a bit more of the slapstick comedy thing going on where, one of them lands and he has to put quarters in a parking meter.
Yeah.
There's another guy, he's like getting out of his plane and then he pulls out a bag of groceries. Another guy like parks his plane in a handicap spot. And there's a guy that yells out, have you no decency? Kent gets out of his plane and he shakes all of the hair curlers out of his hair. And then there's Topper. And he gets out of his jet and he's like looking around like, yeah, back in action. Here we go. The Admiral is looking out at the ocean. He's like, the open sea. God, I wish I could smell. I had my nostril fried in panmujang. The captain is like at another chopper, and he's greeting these two shady dudes that have now come to watch the mission. he's like, Admiral so-and-so, these are these shady dudes from, so-and-so aviation, and they're going to be observing the operation. The Admiral's like, oh, yes, of course. And then he walks towards them and then falls down some fucking stairs. And he is like rolling the fuck down them. While he's rolling down them, he's like, it's okay. I'm all right. No problem. At the end, he like just gets up. And he's like, I slipped on a crab. Who put that crab there? The captain is like, crab? I didn't see a crab. Don't tell me. There were 2 crabs. They work in pairs. I went to Annapolis, for Christ's sake. Right then, this dude walks up to the Admiral and he hands him a paper and he's like, from the Pentagon, sir. The Admiral's like, oh, good, good. Here, help me with this. My eyes are ceramic. Bazooka round at Little Bighorn. Or was it Okinawa? The one without the Indians. What? The captain's reading it and he's like, it's the final orders. We strike tomorrow at 0600. The Admiral's like, excellent, excellent. Wake me up at 0530. Then we got a quick cutaway of the shady guys sabotaging the jets, which is plan B.
Shit.
In the locker room, Kent and Topper, they get to arguing. Because Kent is like, you're a loose cannon. You're going to jeopardize everybody's lives. Topper's like, fuck you. And they're like, oh yeah? You want to go? All right, let's go. And then they both put in mouth guards and then start circling each other with their fists up. Like, let's do this. Let's do this. And then Topper just like lands a good fucking punch right in Kent's face.
You
Boom!
son of a bitch.
And then Kent just like, he just screams out like, oh, my face. And Topper's just like, oh my God, my hand. And then Block is like, attention on deck. The Admiral walks in and he's like, well, gentlemen, we've been waiting a long time for this. In 5 hours, we hit the enemy toast. Block's like, coast, sir. The Admiral's like, huh? Coast? Well, it'll take a little more planning, but it doesn't matter. Your target is the nuclear power plant in Falafel Heights. Yeah, watching this movie now, it's a little culturally insensitive. He's like, if you have trouble hitting that target, there are 2 secondary targets here and here. An accordion factory and a mime school. Good luck, gentlemen. Blake, take over. And then Block like gives the rest of the briefing. The Admiral walks out of the door, and you can hear that he like hit his head on a big pipe. He's like, I'm fine. That's probably for me. I'll get it. Because it went like, bong. So in the briefing, Block puts Topper Harley in charge of the whole mission. And Kent is pissed, and he starts arguing. And he's like, no one respects Topper. He's going to get everybody killed. Block tells him, you are out of line. Just obey your orders, okay? Topper is in charge. Everybody leaves, and then Topper walks up to Block, and he's like, you know, Lieutenant Commander, nobody likes playing for a coach who throws the big game. Block's like, what the hell are you talking about, Topper? He's like, yeah, you know what? Nothing. I just hope you're playing straight with us, okay? So then out on the flight deck, they're all getting ready for the mission. And there's shit like valets handing out keys to the jets and shit. And they're all calling out weird call signs like sphincter mucus niner ringworm, Roger. There's all this dramatic Top Gun music playing. And I might add that along the sides of the jets, it just says, the Navy. So then the Admiral's out on, on some gangway, and then a jet like flies by him and it blows the hat off of his head. And he's like, whoa, holy cow, my cap blew off. Swing her around, we'll pick it up. The captain of the ship is like, but sir, we're on the mission. Oh yeah, good thinking. Yeah, we'll pick it up on the way back. We gotta mark the spot though. Put Rabinowitz in a life raft and have him row in circles until we return. It could be days. And the Admiral just like slams his fist down and he's like, then put some food in the life raft. Good God, man, do I have to think of everything? We'll tape his favorite shows. He won't miss anything. Sir, there's no time. Okay. How can I be an admiral without my cap? It's out there all alone, and I'm here powerless to do anything about it. So then the pilots they're entering into enemy airspace, okay? And, washouts on the radar, and he's like, enemy aircraft at 12 o'clock. And the admiral is in there now, and he's like, really? 12 o'clock? That gives us about 25 minutes. I think I'll step out for a burger. Washout's like, there are 6 enemy aircraft, 6 MiGs on the radar. And then he sneezes onto the screen, and he's like, and a dozen more of them just showed up. Block's like, you got this, Topper. You got it. Let's do this. And then Topper fucking freezes up. And he's freaking out. And all the enemy pilots, they start showing them, okay, inside of their cockpits. And you can see their call signs across their helmets. And they're like, baklava and like pita. Okay? It gets a little worse later.
All right.
And Block is like, engage, engage. So they all get into a firefight. And, Christy Swanson is like, Topper's worthless. He's lost it. We got to fight it for our own. And she's like, I got a lock. And she's about to fire her missile. And you hear one of the enemy pilots just go, shish kebab. Because somebody's got a lock on him. So she's like, Fox 2. And the weapons don't work. The targeting systems are all sabotaged, so the missiles are missing their targets.
Yeah.
And then Block, who realizes now they're all probably going to die, just says over the radio, he's like, those 2 fucking shady guys from such and such aeronautics, they did this, and they said no one was going to get hurt. And there's the admiral sitting there in the bridge. He's like, hearing all of this? And the captain's like, Block, bring your team back. Bring them back. And he's like, no way. I've got the best damn pilot in the world out here. Topper? He starts talking to him over the radio, and he's like, I was with your father 20 years ago. I was an eyewitness. And now we see a different version of the flashback from the beginning of the movie. And we see Block, whose call sign across his helmet was eyewitness. And the flashback is Buzz and Mailman having trouble in their airplane, but Buzz is like getting out of the cockpit and like fixing the plane as it's flying apart in the air.
Yeah.
Okay, he's like stapling it and shit. He's like walking across the wings.
I remember this.
While Mailman is like, get back here, Buzz, get back here. And the wing starts to tear off. And then he like bends down and grabs it with his hands. And Mailman is holding his legs. So it's just, the wing is connected by Buzz's body, which then stretches out like 10 feet long. And you see his socks, and Mailman's like, those are my socks. And then Buzz loses his footing and then flies away. And that's when he pops his chute.
Yeah.
So Block is like, your dad was a hero, Topper. He did everything he could to save Mailman's life before that plane went down. And then Topper fucking snaps out of it. And he swoops in to start fighting these MiGs for everybody. And he's like, my guns are jammed. Looks like I'm going to have to do this the hard way. So he starts doing all this trick flying. And he's like flying up to them and like, bang, 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 tapping on their cockpits with his wings and shit. And he's freaking them out, and some of them are crashing and stuff. And then he's like, I learned this one from Paula Abdul, who I learned was married to Emilio Estevez when this movie came out. That's Charlie Sheen's brother.
Yeah.
And he's doing all this weird shit. He's like spinning his plane around and stuff. And then he's chasing a couple of them, or they're chasing him. And then he like just hits the brakes and his plane just stops in midair. And then they fly past him. So now he's chasing them. Crap like that. Then another 4 MiGs show up and they're all chasing him again. And he's like, yeah, my friends, the clouds. And he goes into the clouds. By the time they get out of them, there's a cliff right in front of all of them. So he just misses the cliff and then they all blow up and die. But now he's got 2 heat-seeking missiles on his tail.
Shit.
So he's trailing these 2 missiles. He's like, I got these 2 bogeys on my tail. If I can't lose them, I'll use them. And now he is headed for the nuclear power plant, and he can see it. And he's looking at it, and he's like, the mother of all targets. And at that point, we see in like the courtyard of the power plant, there's a pool, and there is Saddam Hussein laying next to it having a little fruity umbrella drink. So he's flying by and he just goes, sayonara, Saddam. And then he drops a bomb, which Saddam catches in his fucking lap. And then the 2 missiles that were tailing him hit the power plant, and the bomb explodes, so the whole thing just goes up.
See you at the party, Richter!
So the whole thing goes up in flames, and then afterwards, nobody can reach Topper on the radio. Topper, acknowledge. Nothing. So then everybody on the aircraft carrier, they're all outside, like, looking for the planes coming back. And all of a sudden they see him, and they're like, there they are! They're like, yeah, they're celebrating, the whole team's coming back, you know? So they're coming into land, and there's this whole group of people on the flight deck that are just standing there cheering, and they're like, yeah, we're landing, you guys want to get out of the way? So everybody's like, oh my God, run! So then they land, and one of them's like, where's Topper? Yeah, we lost contact. And then over the radio you hear, I'm here, it's me. So Topper's alive. And he's like, you're going to have to talk me down, though. I got some damage. And Washout is on the radio, and he's like, it's okay, man, you're coming in straight. It's good, I see you, I got you, man. What do you got? He's like, well, I just lost a wing. He's like, it's okay, it's going to be all right. Keep coming. Oh, there goes the other one. And then Washout's like, Topper, call the ball. And Topper's like, touching down. And then his wingless plane just falls straight out of the sky onto the ship. So then everybody is all celebrating and cheering all loud. And you got the triumph music, you know, dun, 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 dun. And Washout and Topper are like running to each other. And Washout fucking misses him. And then everybody's cheering, and Kent and Topper see each other from across the crowd. And Kent looks at him and he's like, you. Topper's like, you. And they walk up to each other and they hug. You know, big old man hug.
Yeah.
And then Topper's just like, I just got one question for you. What's a chafing dish for? And Kent's like, well, it's a traditional serving piece used at cocktail parties and brunches for keeping food warm. And Topper's like, I thought that was a crock pot. No. That's for cooking all day. And then they like walk through the crowd just like still talking about that shit. And then some unseen cameraman is pointing his camera at Topper. And he's like, hey, Topper Harley, now that you've killed the bad guys and saved democracy, what are you going to do now? And he just looks at the camera and he's like, I'm going to Disneyland. And then the whole crowd just goes wild. So then Topper sees Lieutenant Commander Block on a stretcher next to another guy who is giving him a blood transfusion to help save his life. And Block's like, you're a hero, Topper, just like your dad, okay? I held on to that secret for 20 years. You know, I wanted him to fail. I really wanted him to, so I could be number one. And I was in love with your mother. And Topper's like, yeah, it's okay. It's not important now, sir. Save your strength for your court-martial. At that point, the dude who's giving him a blood transfusion, like, starts deflating. And he's like draining him dry.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then Block's like, I thought we needed that super jet from those 2 shady assholes, but, I know we'll be okay as long as we have good American planes in the air with wonderful men like you in the cockpit and German parts. And I know you think it was me, but it wasn't. I didn't sabotage those jets. It was those 2 fucking shady guys. And then we see the shady dudes, and they're like, oh, shit. And they start running. Topper ends up taking one of them out with the net on the flight deck that catches the planes, Oh,
yeah.
It's actually not a net, but it was in this movie.
I remember that.
And he, like, flings away, and he's like, I can see my house from here. And then the Admiral sees the other guy running. So he, like, jumps down and stops him. And he's like, you dare call yourself an American? Well, that gets my panties in a bunch. It's scum like you that taint our military. You risked the lives of some damn fine pilots. Well, that's my job. And then he punches the fucker. That guy ends up rolling down some stairs and lands right into a dentist chair.
Oh, yeah.
There's a dentist that just goes, is it safe? And then starts giving him a fucking root canal. Now it's later in the evening and it's sunset, and Topper is like, he's out at the edge of the ship looking out at the water in the sunset. And out of his pocket he pulls his father's fucking eyeballs. And he looks at him. And he closes the case. And he throws them out into the ocean. So now they're back on land, and there's a whole bunch of fanfare, welcoming them home and stuff. You see the admiral and the captain of the ship standing next to each other in their dress whites, and the admiral just goes, "I think I'm wearing your pants." So then Ramada is in the crowd, and Kent's like, "Ramada, Ramada." She's like, "Oh, Kent." And they hug, and then Topper sees it, and he's like, "Oh, shit." So he just walks away. What he didn't see was Kent saying, like, "You must forget me, Ramada. There's a man on board that ship that needs you, and you need him. I'll be okay. Don't worry about me." And she's like, yeah, okay, get out of my way. And he's like, "That's my girl. Be strong. As long as I have me, I'll be okay." And she's just running past everybody to get to him. And it shows him on the flight deck, and he's walking up to his jet, and he pulls out a key fob out, and he just goes, boop, boop. And he gets in and starts it up. So he's fucking leaving in his jet. And he's like rolling by her as she's running up, and then she runs a little farther and then just jumps onto a fucking horse that was on the flight deck. And she starts chasing his plane. Doesn't catch it. He launches and flies away, and then she has to screech to a halt.
Consider that a divorce.
So next we see some buffalo out on the plain, and Topper's riding back home to his Indian village with all the teepees and shit. And he walks into the teepee where the elder is sitting, and he's like, "Yeah, hey, here's your batteries." He throws them to him. The guy takes his headphones off, and he just says, like, "About fucking time." He looks at Topper, and he's like, "So, who won?" Topper's like, "Yeah, we did, but there's a problem. There was a woman, and I thought I loved her, and I thought she loved me, but she threw me a curveball." And right then, we see somebody in bunny slippers walking into the room, and it's Ramada. And he yells out, "Ramada!" And she's like, "Yes, once. But now they call me Wawatakina." Topper's like, "Well, what does that mean?" She's like, "Little sizzling belly." And then she holds up 2 slices of raw bacon. And then he holds up 2 T-bone steaks. And then she just drops the bacon. And then they kiss, and the credits roll, baby.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so the credits are rolling, and if any of you have ever seen this movie before, there is shit tons of funny stuff in the credits. Like, one of the first things that it shows in the credits is a big recipe for brownies, and it's just like going by.
Put that cookie down!
And, there's like other stuff, like a list of things to do after you leave the theater from seeing this movie, like stuff you could do if you want to. But, whatever. Watch the movie, read the credits. I ain't going to read all that shit.
All right, man. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hot Shots on Movies with Ron. Didn't think we'd ever do this movie, but why the fuck not, right?
Yeah.
As far as these parody slapstick comedies go, I do not ever want to do another one.
Why not?
It's hard, man. Like, not just what they're saying, but it's what they're saying while other shit is happening in the background behind them and shit like that. It's fucking weird, man. It is so much to take in. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty visual. It's hard to make fun of them, too. They're just pure, that level of humor.
Yeah.
When you're young and you watch a pretty funny film, and it could be adult, and there are some adult things that you don't get about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw this movie when I was that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't connect much with it as a kid either.
I remember going to a Planet Hollywood restaurant and seeing Topper Harley's Bow and Chicken from Hot Shots Part 2. It was the weirdest shit.
Yeah, they made a sequel where he was Rambo.
Yeah.
Instead of Top Gun.
And the Admiral was the President.
Well, all right, folks. If you got a phone, if you have a computer, you can jump online. You can jump on the podcast app. You can look at iTunes and give us a rating or review. Or you can go to movieswithron.com on Twitter at Movies with Ron.
And Instagram.
And while you're on Twitter, drop a line to at Raphael Sabarge and tell him Movies with Ron sent you.
All right, it's been fun.
Yep, we love you guys.
Take care.
Movies with Ron.